we cook rice. We go in the forest, in a very good forest and like a balanced environment close to the farm. We bury this rice in the floor.
You mean normal cooking rice? Normal
Yeah, normal,
rice.
with no salt and no temper. Okay,
Okay.
no. Yeah, and then 7 days later we come back. Okay, I published this in my LinkedIn other day, and then there's all color in the rice. The fungus, the good microorganisms,
Okay.
they
They
populate
eat it.
this rice. Yeah, at 7 days, and then there's all color like a rainbow. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The white rice become like purple, red, green, tal. And then we take this rice, we put in a gallon,
Yep.
and we put some sugar, juice or melasse,
Yep.
and leave 7 days. We open just to the air get out in
Yep.
the ferment. And then we take all this juice of good microorganisms and apply in the coffee plots. So we are regenerating the soils that we kill with like glyphosate, like synthetic fertilizer. We are putting back the
The
microorganism
microorganisms.
that was in the forest.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop. It's time to become a coffee consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details.
Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of a 5-part series with Murillo. We are talking about regenerative farming practices. Murillo, you are based in Brazil. You are a coffee producer in Brazil, and you are also a consultant in ag. Now, in the last episode, we were talking about making farming and the supply chain more resilient. We only got through some of that conversation. So what are the last 3 things that you believe are necessary for resiliency in coffee production and supply chain?
Yeah, good. Yeah. So I think knowledge is one of the first part,
Yep.
like knowledge in the practice, in the kind of the practice, the fertilizer, the inputs you're gonna use, and the management of the pruning, planting, So I think knowledge is one of the best input. The other is partnership, and what I mean on that is like partnership to invest in the long term, partnership as a technical system, agronomist on buyer side also to paying a fair price on your product, and yeah, I think it's that.
And if we're looking at the value of local knowledge and local agricultural inputs, and that's really what we want to have this conversation about. So the value of local knowledge. When we recently had Angela on the podcast and we were talking about biochar, the one thing that we really started to uncover is that this is ancient knowledge. This is going back to the way farming used to happen before there were all of these big ag companies. Not saying that they aren't beneficial. You know, a country like Ethiopia, with all the decimation that's happening in Ethiopia right now, if Ethiopia ever wants to go back to coffee, it's going to need to completely revitalize its soil. And that's a 15-year process, or they have to use synthetic inputs to make the soil receive the crops. So what we want to talk about is the value of local knowledge and local agricultural inputs. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great. Yeah, let's start like biochar. It's amazing. Like, and biochar, I have been like the opportunity to work in Amazon in Brazil,
That must
and
be
Amazon,
wild.
yeah, it's amazing. Like one tree, it's the size of a small building, like
Wow.
30 meters, like 40 meters. Amazing. But also, there's 20 million people in Amazon, in Brazilian Amazon. There's a lot.
Wow. Wow.
These people need to survive and have a
Mm,
good life. So we need to develop uh, economic like business for them.
mm,
And then I worked there in a project with technical assistance for farmers, not coffee that time, was like dairy, and to develop. And the soils of the Amazon in Brazil, it's very, very poor.
mm. I heard it's
Like,
not like really great nutrient soil.
no, not at all. It's lower nutrient. Like,
Hmm.
there's like some soils that I work that had 3 ppm of phosphorus. For
Wow.
you and my crops my coffee crops is 60,
Yeah.
60
Wow.
of phosphorus. So there's a lot of aluminum and the
Mm,
pH is very low. So the roots doesn't grow. It stops for roots.
hmm
What makes the soil in Amazon produce the huge tropical forest? The organic matter.
mm.
So the trees do the cycle,
Rejuvenate.
rejuvenate,
Yeah.
and in their time, for our humans' life, small life,
Yes.
it's very short time, and the nature time is much longer.
Our idea of a circular economy is like very, very small compared to a tree.
Yeah. So, but what I like, what I want to say is like in some regions that we reached, the soil was perfect, like black soil, very deep, high, like 200 ppm of phosphorus, and then
Wow.
there was small, like 1 hectare, 2 hectares, big uh, spots on of this soil. Then I started to study. I realized the old indigenous people, they used to do biochar. It's why that soils transform like that.
Wow.
We we call this black earth of indigenous, like in Portuguese is terra preta de índio. And uh, how they do biochar? They used to cut the trees, they bury again, and they burn. So they did the pyrolysis that the biochar needs.
Hmm.
So that's a kind of old, and now there's a lot of movement to start to use biochar in agriculture at scale. Again, there's a lot of startups, company. We are doing quite interesting project with Nespresso in Brazil that we build small pyrolysis machine to go to farmers. That's pretty good. And now we are testing like different quantities of biochar in the coffee plots. But biochar is good because they increase soil water retention, decrease the nutrients retention. So you use less water. You can use like kind of a waste that was the coffee rusk, but you can do biochar from every
Yeah.
biomass. So that's old knowledge. And
Just for people who don't understand that, the thing about biochar is you use what's on the farm. You use the organic matter that's there. So if you're pulling off leaves and you're cutting down trees that had rust, you can then take that and burn it without oxygen. That's what we're talking about by burying it underneath. It's the pyrolysis that it needs. And you can turn that into biochar and then you feed that back to the plants. And so then what happens with that is this biochar forms like a honeycomb that for bees, and that becomes like the housing for the microbiome that's in there. And this ends up becoming a really, really sustainable way for producers to no longer be dependent on inputs. If you ask me how I know this, is because Mapper Forward is going to be partnering with all the right people so that we can start offering workshops that are affordable for producers, that are online. And we'll be bringing that to you later this year so that we can start rolling this out to make it affordable for producers to start learning this stuff. So
that's great.
It's so important that we get this information out there. Because, and Murillo, I couldn't believe it when I read your message saying, please let me help educate people on your podcast about this. And this is the thing about coffee producers. You're not gatekeepers. You get this information and the first thing you're thinking is like, how do we help other coffee producers survive this? And it's a really beautiful testament to what the heart and the soul of a farmer is. So
yeah, coffee, like, it's about people. When you talk to people about their history in coffee in the farm, you get really like passionate about that. For the ones that didn't have this opportunity, I incentivize, like, go to a coffee region, talk to farmers, ask about their family, their history, how they like starting coffee, their family, what they most like in the farm in the day by day. So that's really good conversation. And with a cup of good coffee, it's even better.
It's even better. And it's a big reason why I hope that the conversations that we bring on this podcast help people understand and connect the two ends of the supply chain much closer together so that people can hear this. If we get back to the conversation about the local knowledge, about the value of local knowledge and agricultural inputs, what else do we need to know?
Yeah, I think, like, for the farmer's perspective, like, farmers need to know what is their local inputs. So they need to map this. They need to have the knowledge and the mindset to map this, like, for like keep a bit on biochar. So they could know, like, what could I transform in biochar? Is it only coffee rusk? No,
right.
I could use, like, the eucalyptus leaves. Like, even in Ethiopian, like, there's huge problem of eucalyptus, but the points of the trees, they throw away or they burn. So they could pick in transforming biochar. That could be an engagement, like, with a roaster could sponsor a small machine for farmers take the residue, the eucalyptus, and transform in biochar. If you don't have the biochar machine, you can compost it and transform it in fertilizer.
Right.
You can a local industry that have agricultural residue that you can transform in compost. Like, for here in my farm, I have a big dairy industry close. So I use ashes because they have a heating system that they burn nothing to heat and clean all the stuffs. I use the ashes residues of them that they have. This saved to me around $300 per hectare per year.
Wow.
With a source. Yeah. So I solve a problem of the local industry and I save $300 per hectare for my fertilizer system.
Yeah, wow.
So these kind of things farmers need to have to use local. So there's a very ancestral system that's called compost tea or beneficial microorganisms.
Okay.
What we cook rice, we go in the forest, in a very good forest and like balanced environment close to the farm. We bury this rice in the floor.
You mean normal cooking rice? Normal rice?
Normal, with no salt and no temper. Okay. No. Yeah. And then 7 days later, we come back. Okay, I published this in my LinkedIn other day, and then there's all color in the rice. The fungus, the good microorganisms, they populate this rice. Yeah, at 7 days, and then there's all color like a rainbow. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The white rice become like purple, red, green, tal. And then we take this rice, we put in a gallon.
Yeah.
And we put some sugar, juice or melasse.
Yeah.
And leave 7 days. We open just to the air get out.
Yeah.
In the ferment. And then we take all this juice of good microorganisms and apply in the coffee plots. So we are regenerating the soils that we kill with like glyphosate, like synthetic fertilizer. We are putting back the
microorganisms
that was in the forest. What I spend on that? Just
a bag of rice. And effort.
Yeah.
And some people may not understand it would shock you to know that a lot of the things that we take for granted that we understand, a lot of people don't understand. So, folks, when you hear that there are the synthetic pesticides and fertilizers that people use on the farm, it kills the bugs that are in the soil. Roundup, glyphosate, all of these things, they don't just keep pests away. They kill the bugs that are in the soil. Right, Murillo?
Yes, I think the green revolution in agriculture, I respect the importance it have.
Mm-hmm.
I think the synthetic fertilizers, the glyphosate, stuff like the chemical molecules, they are important to keep producing food for a big population.
Right.
But what brings us here, it will not take us future than
forward.
that.
Right.
We need to take you forward. So we need to change the food system.
Right.
So, yes, the glyphosate kill microorganisms. If you use, let's say, KCl, that's a chlorate of potassium. You have chloro that also sterilizes our soil. So in regenerative practice, we try to avoid some of the main damage molecules or fertilizers. That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
And also try to bring these microorganisms. We keep the soil covered all the time, the most time of the year we could, so we can have food for these microorganisms in the soil for them, keep them alive. Sometimes we plant spots of biodiversity around the plots, as in Brazil we don't have the shade, but we could have some corridors.
Right.
That will attract natural enemies, so we will spend less. But like the conventional agriculture, they are, I think, addicted in some chemicals.
Right.
And farmers.
And sometimes it might not be, now this is a question, sometimes it might not be that they're addicted, but sometimes because of things like labor issues, they aren't able to do some of the regenerative practices because it may be labor intensive. Is that correct?
Yeah, like it's important to use herbicide because like in some regions in Brazil, you don't have people to like weed manually the soil. And also like, it's important to use, like if you have a very high yield of coffee per hectare,
Mm-hmm.
you to put some NPK. Like when I
NPK?
went to
What's
yeah,
NPK?
it's nitrogen and potassium and yeah,
magnesium.
yeah. And when I went to like, let's say, like the countries that farmers don't have money and have very low yield, they use low yield because they have a lack of money to buy fertilizer to put in their plots.
Yep.
So there's different problem in Brazil, as we have a strong agribusiness down the chain. There's a lot of pressure for farmers using more pesticide, because sometimes the technical assistants in Brazil are linked to sales people.
Yes.
Not independent people like me. So sometimes I think farmers, there's like two sides of the coin. We cannot put all in the same basket. I think like for small farmers, even in Brazil, sometimes there's a lack of money to do the right investment.
Mm.
Sometimes in Brazil also, there is a lot of pressure to just use as a preventive, use a lot, because if you don't use, your crop will die. There's a lot of pressure on that. Like I participate like in these groups of sustainable agriculture that I call these like a AAA, that like I'll call it anonymous. Yeah. That's funny, but it's true because
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing that it's so right. It's so right.
Because it's a group of farmers that are very based in science and technique.
Yeah.
Like I have the privilege to belong. And sometimes I say, I stayed this year with just one application of fungicide or with zero application with insecticide. If I say this to a conventional agribusiness room, they say, you are crazy. Your crop will die. And then, but when I talk this between my like sustainable agriculture colleagues, they say, Last year they did the same. So this year we'll try like you. So they start to incentivize each
And
other
encourage.
to do in a less, let's say, chemical way.
I got to ask you, do you think that this knowledge, like having this knowledge and sharing this knowledge and using the things that are the local agricultural inputs, do you think, let me ask you a different way. What chance do you think it gives coffee producers as we face all of these challenges in this coffee crisis? Do you think it can save them?
Yeah, I think that's fundamental. Like if farmers doesn't apply this technique, they will lose yield and they will be out of business. When I say technique, it's like first soil.
Test
Bring back life on the soil, correct the fertilizers balance of your soil, keep soil cover, feed the microorganisms with organic matter, cover crops, biochar for the living, the sides of biochar, so soil. Then put like balance of like pest control and disease control. Avoid kill your natural enemies, like promote biodiversity. So there's a lot of things that I interligate. It's possible. Like we have coffee farmers that I invite, like you or friends that could invest our project of farmers still in the beginning, but we have like partners that are like 5-8 years in this journey.
Wow.
If you go to their farms, in the beginning was hard. The beginning, probably they spend a little bit more money, but now they are saving money as like lower than average their cost of production, and they are established their production in a high average. Like
amazing.
Yeah.
So it's, again, we go back to the long game, right? This is not something that you do when you see the results immediately, because you're changing the way that you're doing something, which leads us to the 4th episode of this series, which is working with nature, not against it. So join us in the next episode, folks. I'm very excited about this. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day.
I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward.